welcome this morning. It's a beautiful day. We welcome you this morning to the Unitarian Universal Fellowship of Northern Nevada, where it is our mission to grow together in love, faith, justice, and joy. My name is Linda O'Neill, and my pronouns are she and her. I am honored to serve as your worship associate today. We are meeting on the ancestral lands of the Paiute, Shoshone, and Washoe tribes. Be mindful of our profound debt to our brothers and sisters. We welcome you, and we are glad that you are here, whether inside the sanctuary or on Zoom. So hello, Zoom. Those on Zoom will remain muted during the service, but you can put comments in the chat box. And for those of you who are here, you can join us in the gathering room for refreshments and great conversation after the service today.
I have a few announcements for folks. The first is that we have found a purse without an ID. So if you are missing your purse, you can please find Marcy. Marcy, can you raise your hand? Marcy will be able to support you. Our next announcements, you may have noticed in the newsletter or up on the screen in the slides that we are in need of gift cards. What that means is, for me and Carol, who Carol's our office administrator, we, through, I'm trying to think of the right words, sorry. We distribute gift cards to Walmart, Kroger, groceries, to members, friends, and folks of our community who are in need. It's a way to help support our members and friends who need a little more support, who maybe have to make the decision between buying groceries or gas money. Oh, thank you. Thank you. And so we are empty, we're out. When people come to our office and ask if we have any way to support them, we have to say no. And so I really want to encourage folks, if you're able, please donate a gift card, ideally from Walmart, Target, Kroger, Smith, somewhere that people can get groceries, medicine, etc. My next announcement is that we are moving into July. July is hot. And for our office staff, myself and Carol, our offices get really, really, really warm if the temperature goes over 90 degrees. And so we have the privilege that our work is hybridized, that we have the ability to work from home. So we ask that if you need to come by the office on a day that is over 90 degrees, we ask that you call ahead to make sure that someone is there to greet you. It is really hard to do this work when you're kind of sweating. And then finally, some of you may have noticed that there are ribbons on the inside aisles, a little roll of ribbon, and that is going to be for something we're going to do at the end of the service. I would like to ask if you are seated in a row where no one is on the end and there's a ribbon there by itself, I ask that you pick that ribbon up and that at the end of the service, I'll tell you what to do. It's not scary, I promise. It's a way to foster connection in our community. And finally, I'd like to invite Michelle Hamilton up to give an announcement.
Thank you. Playing on the theme of it is hot, we know that Reno is the fastest warming city in the United States, and so UNR and the Desert Research Institute are going to measure that so that we know exactly what that means. Why are some neighborhoods hotter and some neighborhoods much cooler? So we're looking for volunteers on July 27th. That's a Saturday. And if you're interested, it's easy, it'll be fun, it'll take about 4 to 6 hours of your time over the course of between now and then. You can either contact me, there's a flyer in the foyer, or you can email greener@uufnn.org. Thank you.
Now please take a few moments to greet one another. We ask all to respect wishes of each other and social distance as preferred. Practice open communication and be mindful to honor personal boundaries. Please welcome each other. I will start the singing bowl to end our friendly hellos to those around us. If you are on Zoom, you can wave to one another or make a sign to greet each other. Go ahead. No, I'm doing this. We welcome all, regardless of racial identity, age, economic circumstances, immigration status, sexual orientation, or gender identity. Welcome.
Good morning. I realized when I gave my announcement, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Nathan Bakken. My pronouns are they, them, and today is my last day as Director of Faith Exploration. Starting tomorrow, I will be the Director of Congregational Life. Next Sunday is going to be themed all around what that means and what my new duties are. But in the shorthand, it will mean that you are going to see a lot more of me at the pulpit, out in town. And I'm very grateful to the leadership of this congregation for affirming the leadership they see in me. So thank you. We come together on this Sunday as the final Sunday of June, June 30th, and we are coming together in celebration of Pride. I'm going to open our worship with the words of the Reverend Hannah Roberts Villeneuve when she writes, "People sometimes ask me, is Pride a protest or a party? The answer, of course, is yes. And why not? Why not rejoice as we resist? Celebrate as we create community that delights in all of who we are. So bring all of who you are with you this morning. Bring your policy demands, bring your glitter. Bring your Supreme Court broken heart, bring your rainbow socks. Bring the emptiness you feel for our siblings who have passed away too soon. Bring your Gloria Estefan remixes. Bring your tender hope for change. Bring your most garish eyeshadow. Bring your spirit tattered and battered by a world that seems insistent on choosing fear and hate over love. Gather up all these things and bring them here, to a place where we don't have to shoulder these burdens or celebrate these joys alone. Come, let us worship together today. And to start our worship, I invite Sarah to help me light the chalice as I read these chalice lighting words for pride. We light this flame to ignite our hearts and minds, the spark of knowledge that enlightens, the shimmering hope that burns, the blazing love that engulfs our actions, the bonfire of our commitment. We light this love for those who celebrate themselves, who fear, who hope, who persevere, who answer the call of love for all. We light this flame to renew our commitment that no one shall ever suffer for the right to love again. We light this flame to celebrate our kaleidoscope of diversity, working, loving, and living on the side of love. For this, we light this flame. I invite you to stand in body or spirit as we sing our opening hymn, Love Makes a Bridge, found in the gray hymnal number 325. Please stand as you are willing.
I want to introduce my grandson, Kai McKnight. I'll tell you how he started to get roped into reading a book. So I would pick him up from track, and then I would go to the Worship Associates and Leaders meeting, and he came with us, or with me. And so then I always say, don't ever enter a meeting, because then you have to be put to work. So he's here to read a book to us.
Hi guys. Kai, as you already know, and I'm going to be reading the book Love Makes a Family. Love is waking up bright and early. Love is baking a special cake. Love is knowing where everything is. Love is finding the biggest puddles. Love is lending a hand. Love is watching from the front row. Love is playing on the weekend. Love is making things better again. Love is washing away the day. Love is reading one more book. Love is chasing away the monsters. And love is a kiss before bed. Good night. Since it's Pride Month, I'd like to talk about my uncles a little bit and the funs I get to have with them. So every summer, me, my brother, and my sister, we get to fly down to Chicago, and we get to stay with our uncles for like a week or two and just do random, wacky, fun stuff. And so for an example, we went to like this medieval fest, and it was like guys dressed in armor, and they were riding horses, and it was really cool. And yeah, that's just some fun stuff we get to do with my uncles. Thank you very much.
I'm going to talk again about my son, and I thought, I wonder how many people know this story. I did change it a little bit, but then I thought things never sometimes change. So I'm going to talk about my son, Nicholas. So I am the mother of Nicholas, a wonderful son. We adopted Nicholas from the Philippines. We were excited to complete our family with the arrival of a sweet, wide-eyed, brown-skinned 9-month-old baby. He was a delight. We were lucky to be his parents as he developed through the years. He was given many gifts that included excellent skills as a track runner and soccer player in high school, as well as a singing voice and ability to dance with ease. He was liked by all, and we were his proud parents. Then, at the age of 15, he shared with us that he was gay. It was a heart-filled conversation. Our support and love for Nick continued, although it is not always the same support when young people start these conversations with their family. We know it would be a difficult time for Nick as he traveled through high school and beyond, and it was. Peers were understanding, parents and teachers not so much, and was not so forgiving. One of the times he was a lead in a play, and when they found out that he was going to the prom with his male companion, they had the students vote. This was the teachers had the students vote if Nick should complete the job of being a head of a play or the main star. So that was one of the things that happened. Of course, the kids all voted yes, that he should continue to be the lead. He found it hard to continue to play high school soccer with unkind comments from players, but mostly from parents, including a hospital visit with a fractured leg during a game, a hit by players on his team. And so it was. Nick is now an adult who lives in Chicago with a partner of 14 years. His career as a singer, dancer, and performing in musicals is more accepting of him, and he feels sad for his Pride members in different walks of life. My worries as a matter of a gay son are greater for his safety, emotional, and physical well-being. He has experienced prejudice, unsafe situations, and rejection. Even though our acceptance of Nicholas was wholehearted, we knew that the course of life was going to be more difficult. And pride is also a call out to parents and to families who travel this difficult road with their children. As we experience acceptance and rejection, as a parent, I see a slow with gathering speed of backwards motion to acceptance of all pride individuals and families. And I have many people that come up and say, do you think that it has changed? Do you think we're really going backwards? And there are examples where we are going backwards in acceptance of all. I now have a poem that was written by Hasina Morez, and actually it's a poem that she wrote after her father came out that he was gay. Pride means love. Maybe it's a cliche to say, a phrase so simple that can run so deep. Like the currents in our body as we navigate how to exist, live, and be in this world. A phrase so many have fought for and continue to fight for. A phrase that has seen children kicked out of homes when they needed their parents the most. A phrase that has seen people find a chosen family and a new place to call home. Pride and love are intertwined, like the embrace of a hug, like holding hands, like bodies on the dance floor. Love is loving yourself enough to accept and see the beauty of who you are. Pride is loving yourself enough to advocate for yourself, your freedom, and your expression. Thank you.
We approach the time in our service for our joys and our sorrows. And I cannot think of a day that holds the meaning of joys and sorrows better than the last day of Pride. And so I want to invite us to find a posture that feels grounding, that feels centering. Move in your seat a little bit, reconnect with your body, your presence here, and hold, as I read these words of our community, that no joy is strong enough to overpower the grief of someone's sorrow, and no sorrow is powerful enough to destroy someone's grief, or to destroy someone's joy. We hold both. We do messy and difficult things every day. So I invite us to take a collective breath and exhale with a sigh as we celebrate Mary Gail Morris's 80th birthday today. Birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, dear Mary Gail, happy birthday to you. And we lift up with Lisa and Sarah Spence and their family that their kitchen is finally finished. We lift up Quinn, whose birthday is on the 4th. We lift up Sophie Moeller to a fabulous performance at the Bruca Theater with a lead role in Sideshow. And we lift up Andrea Coldwell, who had a difficult fall last week, is in good spirits, but could definitely appreciate the love and support of our community. So we lift up our joy, our sorrow, the wholeness of our experience in solidarity with Andrea. And I want to invite us into this moment. Just because there was not an abundance of sorrows does not mean there is not grief in this room. We hold space for the silence in our hearts and in our spirits. And as we hold that space, I invite our choir to lead a meditative hymn titled Filled with Loving Kindness. And as our choir sings, I invite you to breathe and I'll invite their words to enter your heart. To ground us in our reflection today, I'm going to read a poem by the poet Jay Holm titled Beatitudes for a Queerer Church. Blessed are the outcasts, the ostracized, the outsiders. Blessed are the scarred, the scared, the silent. Blessed are the broken, for they are not broken. Blessed are the hated, for they are not worthy of hate. Blessed are those who try, those who transform, who transition. Blessed are the closeted, God sees you shine anyway. Blessed are the queers who love creation enough to live the truth of it, despite a world that tells them they cannot. And blessed are those who believe themselves unworthy of blessing. What inconceivable wonders you hold. Have you ever thought about what really makes a blessing a blessing? When I selected this poem by the transgender theologian and poet Jay Holm, I did so from a place of trying to answer the question, what does our community need to hear today? What does our community need to hear when leaders, communities, and churches continue to mobilize anti-LGBTQIA+ legislation? What does our community need to hear when transgender Americans are refugees in our own country? What does our community need to hear when our world still defaults to heterosexuality and cisgenderness as the norm for society? What does our community need to say to its members of this community who find the LGBTQIA+ conversation too confusing, too difficult, too unsettling, too loud? What does our community need to say back to our LGBTQIA+ members, friends, families, coworkers, and those we will never know that they are not hearing regularly from the world? The answer I came to was that LGBTQIA+ people are a blessing, that we are a blessing, that we are sacred, that we are loved, that no matter where we are on our journeys of self-exploration and the language to describe it, we are a blessing to this community and to this world. But what makes a blessing a blessing? I want to invite you all to join me on a little bit of a language lesson. The word blessing has a fascinating evolution. It comes from the Old English word blod, meaning blood, eventually turning into blidjen, meaning to consecrate or mark with blood. And then over time, there's some empires, there's some wars, and it intermingled with Latin, and the Latin word benedictere, and picked up its meaning of to speak well of or praise. Along the way, the word blessing evolved and transformed to commonly be defined as pronounced words in a religious rite to confer or invoke divine favor. I'm going to be honest. I am very unsatisfied with that definition. In the evolution of the word, blessing lost its connection to blood, and by doing so, shifted our understanding of the concept out of an embodied material reality and into a metaphysical philosophy where it can offer us comfort without the need of mess or sacrifice or living things or marking our flesh with the flesh of another. I want to be clear. I am not advocating to a return for animal sacrifice, nor am I encouraging unsanitary spiritual ritual. Rather, what I am advocating for is a posture towards blessing and the act of blessing that holds the essence of life itself at the center. When I read Jay Holm's poem, I read a poem that takes seriously the blood in the veins of the word blessing. Blessed are the outcasts, the ostracized, the outsiders. Blessed are the scared, the scarred, the silent. Blessed are the broken, for they are not broken. Queer liberation was born from the resistance movements organized and led at the front lines by the members of gay society that even gay society did not want to respect. Black trans women, drag queens, butch lesbians, sex workers, the poor, the kicked out and unhoused, they were the people who started our revolution. Many of us lift up the names Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera every June with grief because those two women mothered a movement and did not get respect until after they died. Pride is a blessing because the outcast, the scarred, and the broken, but not broken, blessed their beloved community with their rage, their joy, their love, their authenticity, and their commitment to liberation, even at the cost of their lives. Our celebration is upheld in praise by the blood, sweat, and tears of our community. As LGBTQIA+ people, we know that we dance, parade, hold hands of our lovers, kiss the cheeks of our friends, and we do so with the blessing of all of our trans and queer ancestors who were not afforded the privileges to do so before us. Pride is a blessing because it marks us with the essence of life found at the center of our heritage and our history, and calls us to carry it forward to make the world a better and queerer place. To illustrate that, I turn back to our poem. Holm titled his poem Beatitudes for a Queerer Church. And before I make the point I want to make, I can already hear Nathan, I do not use the word church to describe UUFNN. And you're right. For you and for many people here, you don't use church language to describe this place. And yet, simultaneously, there are members of this community who do use the word church to talk about this place and this community. And I want to invite everyone, every time you hear me say the word church, insert your word. Insert how you come to this place. Because I cannot list every word for community or else this sermon will never end. And so I return back to the poem, and Holm's title makes two delightful assertions. The first is that the church is already queer. Beatitudes for a queerer church. The church is already queer. We don't have to make it. Queer people of faith have already existed in it, have existed currently in it, are some cases leading it, and will continue to exist in religions, traditions, and sacred places across cultures, time, forever. Religious traditions, including our very own Unitarian Universalism, are not pristine institutions of heterosexuality and cisgenderness, even though many pretend to be so. Holm's title reminds us that we are not doing the work of making a straight thing queer. Rather, Holm challenges us to witness the blessing of the already queer and challenges us to make it queerer. Making the queer queerer does not mean putting out more rainbows or asserting that straight people and cisgender people are not real. Queer as a verb means to make something strange, to disrupt with difference, to flip on its head, to change perspective. Within the tradition of queer political theory, queer as a verb means to disrupt with difference in such a way it seeks to be in direct opposition to oppressive systems that seek to harm the least of us. It is not enough to put a rainbow flag on a door if we fail to change and grow in our capacity to meet, hold, and love people beyond our wildest imaginations of who they could be, of who they could love, and how their gender could be expressed. The second assertion that Holm makes is that to make the church queerer, we must unapologetically acknowledge and claim the inherent blessing of LGBTQIA+ people. And we do so not because of what they can do for us, but by their inherent worthiness and dignity, by their being itself. This poem is not a poem of simple inclusion to meet a diversity quota. It is a challenge for all of us to imagine our communities of faith and see all marginalized people, to see people of color, Indigenous people, disabled people, poor and working class people, immigrants, people surviving incarceration, and LGBTQIA+ people as sacred and necessary to our community, as if people are the blood and the veins of a church. To call something a blessing means to honor its necessity. To make the queer church queerer is not possible with simple, kind words alone. It requires action. And how we go about making the queer faith queerer differs from tradition to tradition. As Unitarian Universalists, we have our own history and heritage that has radically changed not just our tradition, but the lives of queer people of faith around this country. In September of 1969, 3 months after the Stonewall riots, Reverend James L. Stoll, a Unitarian Universalist minister, publicly came out as a gay man. This was the first time in the history of organized religious traditions where an ordained clergy person came out of the closet. I can only assume I was able to attend seminary because of the work of Reverend Stoll. I could only stand here at a pulpit because of the work of Reverend Stoll. In 1970, the UUA General Assembly passed a resolution titled Resolution on Discrimination Against Homosexuality and Bisexuality. This urged all Unitarian Universalists and all people to immediately bring an end to all discrimination against homosexuals and bisexuals. 1970, a year after the Stonewall riots. In 1979, Unitarian Universalism ordained its first openly gay minister, the Reverend Douglas Morgan Strong. He was called to All Souls Church in Augusta, Maine. That happened 10 years after Reverend Stoll came out. In 1984, the UUA came out in support of same-sex marriage, decades before any other religious tradition. In 1988, Unitarian Universalism ordained their first openly transgender minister. 1988. At the peak of the AIDS crisis, at the peak of anti-LGBTQ violent hatred, the UUA ordained their first transgender minister. And that minister was never called to a congregation. And the name of that minister is not on record in any of the research I did for this sermon today. I don't know who this person was. I don't know their name, but I do know that we applaud ourselves for their ordination. In 2002, the first out transgender person in UU ministry was called to serve a congregation. His name is the Reverend Sean Dennison, and was called to serve South Valley UU Society in Salt Lake City, Utah. 14 years after the first trans person was ordained, that is when a trans person was called to lead a church. We were ahead of the curve, and in doing so, we still did damage. In 2024, literally last week, the UU General Assembly passed a resolution titled Embracing Transgender, Non-Binary, Intersex, and Gender Diverse People is a Fundamental Expression of UU Religious Values. In 2024, the UUA says embracing people like me is a fundamental expression of our religious values. That is a gift, a blessing, and happened 54 years after the same extension was offered to gay, lesbian, and bisexual people. We are part of a tradition that was one of the first religions in the history of the modern world to see the inherent worthiness of LGBTQIA+ people. We are part of a tradition that acknowledged the blessing that queer and trans people in our communities are and actively sought to change ourselves to meet the needs of the oppressed. We are not perfect, as I demonstrated, but we are dedicated to trying and growing and changing. Blessed are those who try, who transform, who transition. Blessed are the closeted, God sees you shine anyway. Blessed are the queers who love creation enough to live the truth of it despite a world that tells them they cannot. We are part of a tradition that tries. We are part of a tradition that seeks to create a world that invites all people to live the truth of their existence. In 2024, the voice of the parts of the world that tell us we cannot live in our truth are getting louder. That is why Pride is a blessing. Because for 30 days or a single parade, LGBTQIA+ people and their allies come together to dance, to make love, to be their truest and bravest selves, to rage and protest, to cry and grieve, to come together for renewal, to come together in defiance of a violent world that tells them to be quiet, to be small, that tells them it is too risky to love here and it would be better if you didn't. Pride is a blessing because it is a necessary and sacred no to the violence of the world. Pride is a blessing because it is a necessary and sacred yes to building a world so far beyond our imaginations it can be a little overwhelming. Pride is a blessing because it is a necessary and sacred reminder that survival requires community. Pride is a blessing because queer people of faith have named it so. And for us, here at UUFNN, Pride is in September. Pride for Northern Nevada got moved to September 7th this year. And I am so grateful because one, it will be slightly less hot. And two, because it challenges the world that wants us to stay quiet. It challenges the world that wants us to stay quiet with the joyful truth that we can celebrate Pride whenever we want to. Calendars are not cages. And we as UUFNN will be there. We will be in the parade, at our table in the festival, with our communities and beloveds that exist beyond the doors of this beloved community, carrying forward our commitment to becoming a place where all people can find space to grow in love, faith, justice, and joy, and that every season has the potential and possibility to be blessed by the spirit of pride, which is to say, every season will be a season blessed by the spirit of love. Amen.
Good morning. I just want to recognize our guest musicians. We have Graham on the violin, Olivia Knock on the cello, and we have Colton Weaver on the drum set.
This is the time in our service when we now take an offering that allows us to exercise all important generosity of spirit. An offering will support this self-supporting church and its many ministries. The gift of the congregation will be most greatly received. And today is the last day for Share the Plate of Life is Worth. Each month we change to another Share the Plate. It's a suicide prevention program for teens and young adults. They reach about 500 young people per year. Their mission is to recognize and intervene on suicide risks in young people. For those of us that are present today, we will be passing the basket. For those on Zoom, you can do your offering by text. Thank you for your generosity. Now let the offering begin. Word of Fellowship, which is helping people in love, faith, justice, and joy, we dedicate ourselves, and these are offerings.
Before we bring our service to a close, I want to invite us to give another round of applause for our guest musicians. Thank you, Colton, Olivia, and Graham. And I know you're all sitting there wondering, Nathan, what are these ribbons for? So for our closing and benediction, I'm going to ask the folks on the side with the ribbons we're going to weave through the sides of the aisles. We're going to try our best. And so I'm going to invite the people on the end to pass the round part of their ribbon to the person across the aisle from them. Yes. Yeah, that way. You're going to pass it that way. We're going to make like shoelaces down the aisles of rainbow thread. And you need to hold on to the other end. So we want to, yeah, perfect. We're not striving for perfection. We want to... And I want to invite all the people on the sides to stand as you are willing and embody your spirit for our benediction. And continue to let the threads weave through the congregation. And if you find yourself without a thread, I invite you, if you are willing and comfortable, to hold the hand of the person on either side, that we can all be connected. It is in the spirit of pride that we have gathered here today. It is in the blessing of community, of connection, of our commitments to love, justice, freedom, and each other that we have been gathered. And it is in that spirit that we are parting. And as I extinguish our chalice, I invite you to continue to rise as we sing our closing hymn, Answering the Call of Love, because it is together in this connection and in this community that we answer the call of love.